let's go ahead and get started here on this. Let me minimize this. All right. Now, for those of you who don't know, we're Enhanced AI, and we want to make sure that we're empowering the world to use AI in their business. We want them to use it every single day. Now, to do so, we either need to be AI consultants ourselves or leverage that through AI consultants out in the wild so that they can use our platform to help their clientele and businesses use AI, right? So one of the biggest things that we do is allow users of our Flux prompt tool and platform to daisy chain the functionalities of the LLMs that are out there. So brand names that you've heard of, like OpenAI's ChatGPT 4.0 or Gemini, Llama, Claude, etc., and let you actually chain them together to create an AI workflow that opens up bottlenecks, alleviates manual processes, or just basically superpowers the way that you think about business and how you do your processes every given day. So I really wanted to do a warm introduction here to Chad. Chad is the CEO of CMO Zen, and you have been using AI in all sorts of different ways in your business, and it's been really, really awesome to see. You know, we've been talking for the weeks leading up to this, and I can't wait for you to show this to everyone. Can you give us just a little bit of a taste on what we're about to see in today's webinar?
Yeah, sure. So I think at best I'm like an AI intermediate, right? Like there's a deep look at AI tech that is beyond me. It's beyond, like I'm not spending my all day every day developing AI tech. And that's kind of where I think a lot of people are, right? I'm familiar with things, and I'm trying to stay abreast of things that are moving really fast, lots of changes and applications that make a lot of sense. And so the Flux Prompt tool with Enhanced AI has been kind of a perfect fit for me. I tend not to be really like an early adopter. I mean, it might feel like an early adopter, but we're like 2 years in since ChatGPT was released, right? And so that's enough time for me to have seen people kind of deploy AI in ways that made sense. And I think Flux Prompt kind of bridges the gap for me. It's one of the reasons why I'm excited to talk about it, is that it's allowed me to see workflows that people are doing that used to be difficult, or that were complex and required a steep learning curve, and kind of deploy things the way that I've already deployed them in kind of analog playbooks in CMO Zen, take those and use Flux Prompt to just supercharge them with AI. And so that's been effective, and I feel like it's tip of the iceberg, but I hope that the things that I have to show today will model that, where it's like, hey, we had essentially an analog process. For some of these things are research-based, some of them are content-based, but we're taking an analog process, and now with AI, we're able to execute it much more faster in terms of creating value for our clients.
Perfect. So I kind of want to make sure everyone understands we're recording every episode. So if you missed out or you want to catch up, that's going to be on our YouTube channel. You can go ahead and find that link here in our chat. But Chad, give us kind of a background on what is CMO Zen beyond the sand garden you have behind you and the Lego bonsai tree. I mean, what more do you incorporate than the Zen concept too, as far as marketing goes? Just kind of give us a little bit of background about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, thanks. So I started CMO Zen about 3 years ago, and that's after effectively 20 years as a full-time CMO. CMO Zen is a kind of a boutique agency for fractional CMOs. So we have a small team of fractional CMOs, and we do that work for typically companies between like 2 and 20 million in revenue. And so the Zen idea is just the idea that marketing is big and it's complex. And what we wanted to do was really deliver peace of mind to people who maybe they didn't, most of our clients, we're talking usually with founders or marketing leads. Sometimes if they're founders, they didn't have a marketing background, or marketing feels like, this black box of voodoo and pixie dust to them. And the unknown element of that, I mean, even if you're steeped in marketing, you don't know everything. There's a lot to know. And so our approach was we wanted to bring the frameworks and playbooks and experience that we had developed over our careers to make marketing feel easier to manage, deliver that peace of mind. And the peace of mind aspect is really where the Zen comes in. So we're not like actual Zen Buddhists, or it's not a religious thing. It's more of an aesthetic.
Yeah, gotcha. I mean, is there any way that you're going about it that's different than what anyone else brings to the table today?
Um, I guess what I would say is that I think that in that range, right, companies that are in that 2 to 20 million in revenue range, I think there are probably 80 or 90% of the projects that people need to be done that don't need like a bespoke, super customized approach.
Mm.
They're really similar, and really what you need is a solid bread and butter best practices approach to knock that thing out and take that the remaining sort of 10 or 15%, and that's where all of kind of what makes you different, better, or special than everybody else really shines. And I think it's true about business projects too, not just marketing, but it's like you don't really need to reinvent like accounting, right? You don't need to go and take Gap
Right.
and remake Gap in order to have a really unique startup. You just need to be able to take everything that runs your business, run that at a best practice level, and then take the things that really make you shine and lean in heavy on those. Put your imagination, your creativity, all of your extra cycles on the things that really differentiate you and set you apart. And sometimes founders we're inventing so many new things that we feel like we got to invent everything, and I think
No, yeah.
that's not the best way. You just can't. There's too much. But if you lean into the things that make you special, then those will burn the brightest.
Totally get you. I mean, before we dive into the meat and potatoes of kind of what we're showcasing today, can you just kind of give us an overhead, maybe more of a generalistic view? I mean, how has CMO Zen used AI to supercharge or enhance what it is that you're currently doing or were doing before without it?
Yeah. So before we deployed AI, we started building a library of playbooks for these things that I mentioned that are kind of like these are kind of the same every time. You go through the same steps to execute on these projects, and so we kind of had a library built out of the systems and processes and frameworks and rules that we used to guide people through those. And in those, we kind of had the best thinking of all of our CMO team. And that's decades of experience baked into these processes. And then as an example, by deploying AI, this first thing I'm going to show you is a research project about marketing channels. Like if I know who my ideal customer is, and I really just want to find, like, where are they? Where are they going to get their information? I'll share this with you. And we do this, it's a very effective process to do manually, but it takes a day or two of somebody's time to execute. Using AI, using Flux Prompt specifically, we're able to take that down to the core of it is done in about 2 minutes, and then we figure it still takes maybe a half an hour's worth of human supervision over what the AI is producing. So that's like a 16x improvement in efficiency for that project. And so that's just one example, and we're in the middle of sort of our adoption of what AI can do for us. But by doing something like that for our clients, we don't always bill everything by the hour, but by being super efficient, it allows us to kind of get the block and tackling done for our clients so that we can spend more of kind of the human cycles on, just like I mentioned, the things that really, where they really get the most leverage and the most value, because we're not spending so much time on these kind of nuts and bolts.
Gotcha. I mean, that's a huge deal, just in and of itself. I mean, so let's just go ahead and dive in. What can you show us today? What have you built with AI that you're actually using either for yourself or for your clientele? And just kind of walk me through that.
Yeah. Let's see. Is this a good opportunity for me to share my screen here, Vince?
Yes, let's go ahead and do that.
Okay, let's. Okay, you guys see this Google form? So this
AI
is
watering hole, right?
yeah,
AI
yep.
watering hole.
So
Yep, perfect.
this project about finding marketing channels we call the watering hole, and to use that metaphor, it's where does our customer go to get information? Where do they go to find solutions to the problems they have? And our goal is not to drag the customer to some new place to find us, but rather to show up where they're already looking. And so this watering hole allows us to do that. One of the cool things about Flux Prompt is that it integrates with Google Docs. So in this case, I just built this Google form. It has two inputs, right? One of them is what's the title or role of the ICP, of the buyer persona, And then which channels do we want to look at? So what this is going to do is it's going to take that title and it's going to go search Google for that title plus this role. So for an example, let's say that I was looking for, maybe I'm looking for prompt engineers. We'll use an AI specific thing. And what I want to know is, are there any AI prompt engineering conferences, associations, trade shows, like Discord servers, subreddits? These are the places that everybody congregates, but they try to do it in something that is specific to what they're interested in, right? And so what we want to do is surface those things, because we may not know where all of those people are. And so in this case, I fill out this form. I tell it, if usually this last tier about, thought leaders, Instagram gurus and influencers, that's more of a B2C approach, less applicable to B2B. But as a human, I can decide. And so I check the box for which tiers I think make the most sense. Maybe I don't want to, go too deep. I just want to look for events. I just check tier 1. And then when I submit that, then so this is what a Flux prompt workflow looks like. And I won't take the time to go into the detail of each of these pieces right now, but essentially the first step is, it's going out to that Google form and it's pulling in the data. So I have kind of a UI piece where I can have, somebody on my team fill out the form and then run the workflow, and it goes out, grabs that data, and then it's going to do some things. It's going to start running searches based on that. And then when it's done with all those searches, it's going to spit it out into a spreadsheet like this. So I'm connecting with Google Docs on the front and on the back, and then the middle, AI is doing the work of Googling these. Essentially, it's going out to Google and it's grabbing the top 20 results, and it's then piping those through. So here, I was looking for somebody in the role of electronics manufacturing, and this went out and found, essentially 128 potential places where I could look at to reach people in electronics manufacturing. So, and these are all kinds of places, right? So they're anything from, I think up here at the top, we had here's a bunch of TikToks, depending on who my audience is, maybe in that 30-minute kind of human overview, they're going to come in and say, okay, that's not actually what we want to do, or it's not part of our expertise. But then I come down here and I start to find events. Like here's the American Electronics Association. If I go into the website for that association, they may have events, they might have newsletters, they might have other things, and they're already doing all of the heavy lifting to bring that audience to that place. All I have to do is just show up there. And then ultimately what we do is, once I get this full list, then I come over here, and this is human driven now, but I'm working on adding the AI to this component, which is, if I have this list of 120 things, that's still a lot. So where should I spend my marketing dollars? And so what I'm going to do is, I'm going to look through these two columns, and I'm going to rank them based on, one is my rating 1 to 5 about how strong I think that channel would work. This is just human judgment, intuition, experience. It doesn't have to be, precise. But I'm going to look at which ones do I think are best, rank them 1 to 5. Then I'm going to go to cost. And if I have precise costs, I'll use that. If I don't, I'll just use t-shirt sizes, right? Small, medium, large, extra large, rank it by cost. And then the spreadsheet will come here and give that a weighted score. And then I rank that list based on, which is the lowest cost, highest likelihood of reaching my customer. And now let's say that I've done the heavy lifting, the research piece AI did for me. Now, if I'm going and saying, oh, I'm going to take a look at where I should spend my marketing budget and time, let's say I take the next quarter and I'm going to take the top, say 5 of these. I'm going to run tests in the top 5 over the next quarter. And now what that effectively means is that I have a de facto marketing plan for the next 3 months. I have a rough idea of the budget because I've estimated them by cost. I have a time element, right? I'm doing this over the next quarter. And if I take another few minutes, I can come up with, okay, for each channel, how would I measure success? And it's usually one of 2 ways. Either we're going to try this channel, it's not going to work. In that case, we've learned something about it. We're going to refine our hypothesis, or we're going to influence customer behavior. So we're going to start to see people respond to our message in that channel, or they're going to take some kind of action that's going to teach us about, is this on target or not? And that's so much more manageable for a CEO than the head of marketing coming and saying, it's like, look, just trust me, this is going to work. Yeah, how long? I don't know, maybe 6 months, maybe a year. you know,
Right.
and
Right.
this,
Yeah.
every month he's going to investor calls, he's got board meetings, there's pressure hitting from all sides, right? Missing revenue targets. And he's like, and my marketing guy is telling me I just got to be patient. That is, so terrible for them. And as marketers, we're kind of not great at closing the gap for them, right? We're not very kind to them. And it's true that these things do take time, but if this allows us to take that and boil it down into a method that it's like, okay, I know we're testing this. I know what I expect to see. I can look for signal between here and the next 3 months, and they don't feel so hung out to dry. And at the same time, we're being
Gotcha.
really smart about what we're trying to pick. Like all of these things now have been thoughtfully selected, trying to do the things that have the most ROI. Okay, that's the first one. That's the watering hole exercise. And seriously, I've got to where I used to, at a couple of days of an associate's time, that this wasn't something that I could do and have ready for like a sales call.
Yeah.
But now it is. So now it's not, I'd be talking to a prospective client and I would say, hey, I took a couple minutes, before our call and just ran this. And like, here's a bunch of associations, a bunch of events, trade shows, a bunch of YouTube channels or influence, all these things. I can show up to the sales call and have those. And then they think, oh man, this guy's a genius, And I was like, well, I used to be a slow genius. Now I'm faster.
Exactly. So is this saving you days of time, like just this flow alone?
Yeah, it is. This is depending on where the client, maybe the client's already got a bunch of channels that are working, in which case this isn't appropriate. But a lot of times we're working with people in their go-to-market phase. And so they're trying to figure out, or maybe they started and they didn't have their ICP very well defined. Once we get the ICP well defined, now that we don't know that the channels that we had identified before are the right ones, being able to do this quickly, the turnaround time really makes this a more useful project.
No, I totally get that. What's crazy and amazing about this at the same time is not just how long this takes, but that artificial intelligence still needs human intelligence, right? So you have combined that with years and years of insight and experience to know that this kind of dark social approach is huge for potential CEOs, business operators and owners, founders, et cetera. And you're giving those leaders this insight in literally minutes. And it took forever
Yeah.
from before. And you're right. It's I was a slow, smart person. Now I'm a fast, smart person. Like that's huge. And I love to see that. Now, the only reason I bring that up is because I think that is lost on a lot of the audience today is they expect AI to take you across the finish line all the way. Like, honestly, a lot of times, if not most times, can go 70, 80, 90%. And you still have to have that human intelligence to take you over that line.
Yeah, that's right. Like a metaphor that I like to use is like, so I like to mountain bike, right? So I go out on the trail. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a super aggressive mountain biker, but I like going out on the bike, right? And so the way I feel about AI is it's like the people on the e-bikes. They're still pedaling, they're still steering, but they're going way faster than me. And I was like, I've been working at this. I've been out here for, 30, 40 minutes and you're just blowing by me. And I don't feel great about it, but that's the way AI is. Like they're enhanced. They are,
Right.
sped up. So,
No, I love
well,
that.
you ready for me to show you another one?
Yes, please.
So, this is one I worked with my friend Pete Larkin on this, and this project was born out of an actual client project. And what the client was doing was they're like, hey, we're finding that our sales team is going head to head with this same competitor over and over again. And we're not sure what the right response is for them. And so we were thinking about that. And there have been sales battle cards or competitor battle cards. That's not a new thing. But we were trying to think about what would be a creative way to get the data of, like, we didn't really know the client company, they were new, or the competitor. So how could we get the data that would let us know what features would help us win over the competitor? And we're thinking about that. And I've actually, in some ways, been a little down on battle cards. I've been down on the time it took to build battle cards
Yeah.
in the past. And the reason is, it's not because I don't think it's really handy as a salesperson, especially if you're new, right? You're in your ramp period, to be able to say, oh, you're looking at this person. Well, we usually win by doing this, A, B, C, and D over that competitor. But the reason I've been down on it is because if you've seen these like feature grids, right? All the green check, you got green check marks on your product, and everybody else has red check marks.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is that you're only one like dev release cycle away from that not being accurate anymore. Oh, they added the feature, right? And so I was trying to, we were thinking about this, and what we ended up doing was, and this is another one where he'd been doing it manually first, and then we ran it with AI. And so what we did was we hijacked review sites. So think about G2, Gartner,
Okay.
Clutch, the sites that, Capterra, sites that provide reviews. And what do people use those reviews for? They go there to try to help determine which software they should buy or which service provider they should hire. So we went out and we built a workflow where we essentially had AI scrape the reviews for these sites. This was something we were using a VA to do manually, and you still could, right? You could still use the VA. But we scraped things like, okay, look at these reviews. What are people saying positive? What are they saying negative? What do their ratings look like? And then we had the real kind of magic to that was then we asked AI to crunch that and say, okay, here's all the reviews for our company, our client. Here's all the reviews for the competitor. Now start analyzing this. Tell us where the strengths, essentially do a SWOT analysis. So where are the strengths and weaknesses? And then under what normally we'd have like opportunities and threats for a business, the way opportunities and threats show up in a battle card is opportunities are we win over competitors on these features. Threats are competitors win over us on these features. And so this is what the output looks like, right? So this is formatted nice, but so essentially we're saying this was our client, this company, and this was saying that they were strong in customer support, territory planning, integrating with Salesforce, and flexibility and customization. And then automation and efficiency. This was interesting because it was number 5 for both. So this came from independent reviews. The data source is part of the magic there, right? So essentially, each of these guys had, maybe 50 or 60 reviews, and we could have done it on 10, right? 50 or 60 reviews over years, where their customers said these things about their strengths, these things about their cons, the pros and cons. And so this is what it came up with. And what I know I keep saying this, but what I love about that is that the thing that made me skeptical about battle cards, that, hey, the information is going to be out of date. Sure, the competitor could add a feature, but what this is telling us is like, where have they been committed over years? So as a salesperson, right, I'm in the middle of that conversation, and somebody's like, well, I just had a demo with them. They said that they have this feature. And it's like, yeah, I know they say that they have it. And it's not that they're lying to you, like they do have it. But what we can tell from analyzing the reviews over years is that it hasn't been a priority for them. So even though they have it, it's new for them. It's not hardened and tested. This has been a strength for us for decades, or whatever that looks like, right? I'm just making up a sales conversation. Right, yeah. But by referring to the kind of third-party data, it makes it where it's not, otherwise it's he said, he said, she said. I'm going to tell you I'm great. The competitor's going to tell you they're great. And this is what do our customers say about us? So if you look down here, right, these were our strengths, weaknesses, right? So our company, we weren't very user-friendly. Sometimes we had performance issues. The implementation was complex. So they had support, right? Customer support was number 1 up here, but as a weakness, they relied on support. And right, you remember the old book, The Best Support is No Support? So in this case, our client was failing on that. And then also high cost for smaller companies. So that you start to, like, even though I haven't put the name of this company in there, you start to get a feel for what they're like. They're kind of like a Salesforce, where it's very customizable, very flexible, but difficult to onboard, long ramp time. Sometimes you need to hire 1 or 2 people to run it. It's not that that's not appropriate for a certain segment of the market, but you need to know if you're in that segment. And so That's really good. And then down here, this was some of our best learnings. I'll also say that I don't think we have even come close to all the questions we could ask about this data.
Yeah, right.
We pulled together a really great data set, and this was our kind of our first pass at what we wanted to know from it. But I think there's a lot more that we could be asking of the AI to tell us about trends inside this data. But here, this was cool, right? So where do we win? The company could win over the competitor by emphasizing its superior customer support, our Salesforce integration, ease of use, and territory planning. That was a feature that the competitor didn't have at all. Our ability to automate processes and reduce manual work could also be a strong selling point against the competitor's steep learning curve and performance issues. And then where do we lose? The competitor may win against us by leveraging its flexibility, real-time data integration, and a user-friendly interface. For me, it didn't require as much help from support. And so these might also not quite be right yet, in the sense that this is raw from what AI spit out. So now we can look at that and apply the human layer and say, it's
Right.
like, oh yeah, if I was going to give this to my sales team, I might really underscore something. Or maybe the AI looked at mixed up a pro versus a con or something like that, and we could identify that. But it gets me so close that it's been great. And then this last piece also was just we just kind of threw that in there, and then we're like, oh, well, this was cool. Give me some message positioning ideas. So as we think about how we're applying the strengths and weaknesses to our messaging, the AI is giving us some prompts and suggestions about what copy we might put in our ads, what copy we might put in our blog posts, etc.
So if anyone who doesn't quite understand the space, and especially in revenue operations, essentially knowing this data from a battle card can honestly make or break the phone call or the demo or the brainstorming meeting that you're on. I mean, these types of insights are paramount. A lot of people just go into it and say, hey, here's my demo, here's my product, force it down your throat. And I've heard so many salespeople, hear and see that, they do that, and then the person on the other end says, oh, you're a lot like so-and-so. And immediately they don't know what to say. They don't know what to do. They just jot it down. How do I, talk about this after the fact? If they can address it there on the call, typically what we've seen is that they're lost, or you've already started to lose them. And it's pretty significant. Like the impact is huge. I mean, what are you seeing with someone who uses versus doesn't use a battle card?
Yeah, well, so what I need to give you the caveat is that this is like maybe 2 weeks old, like
Yeah.
developing this particular workflow. Really, it's nascent and current for us. So we're still figuring out how to deploy it. And there's some things that you would normally see on a battle card that we're trying to figure out how to incorporate. Like usually there's a price comparison in a battle card. Are we focusing on beating the competitor by price, or are we saying no, our feature set is better, our value is higher, and so it's appropriate that we are higher priced. But certainly the ramp time, I think, is a big one. Like as salespeople get experienced, this all lives in their head, right? They know how to respond with different competitors. But during that ramp, and when you're calculating your growth and the rate of growth, you think about the Salesforce math. I'm going to have to add so many AEs. Those AEs are going to take X amount of months to ramp, and by ramp time it means from the time they're hired until they're consistently hitting quota. This is a strong piece for shortening ramp.
Gotcha. I mean, this is great. I mean, what other insights have you seen from either using Flux Prompt or using AI just to help some of these processes that you are either doing for your company or your clientele?
Yeah, so these first two that I've shown are very research based, right? This is about turning AI loose to surface insights that might help us solve problems for clients. Sometimes we're just using them on workflows where it's a project that's well known. So, for example, this flow that I was showing you earlier, this is actually about creating problem statements. So, a lot of times when we're thinking about messaging for a company, and messaging is probably one of the biggest reasons why clients come to us. It's like, hey, we just don't feel like our messaging is right. And sometimes it's just about confidence, but sometimes they haven't also gone through the steps of, well, how do we know that our message is landing? And ultimately, because the customer responds to it. And so a great way of discovering that is to start by saying, okay, we're going to write a problem statement. This is a snippet from the day in the life of our customer. And the problem statement is essentially whoever can describe the pain best wins. So
Yeah.
we're going to So the problem statement is kind of step one about nailing your messaging. And to kind of show you how that works, we'll do problem statement first. In this case, we're not saying anything about our solution. We're not telling them how we solve this problem. We're just agitating to understand. It's like, okay, how does this problem cause our customer's life to suck?
Yeah.
How is this driving them nuts? And then what we're going to do is after that, we're going to take and flip that on its head and talk about our solution as the antidote to what's making things suck for them. And then from there, we can develop messages that we'll then test. And
Gotcha.
ultimately, we want validated messaging where we have a pretty reliable hit rate in terms of if this message hits our target customer, a reliable percentage of those customers will respond. So this is the linchpin at the beginning. And so again, here, what I'm having it do is it's looking at the company, it's looking at the company's website, it's looking at the title of the ICP, and it's doing a search and then combining that. It also has training on problem statements. So I've taken a whole bunch of like best practice articles and things like that and built a training set. Flux Prompt allows you to create objects around that. So maybe a real easy one would be, I want to train on email subject lines.
Sure.
So then if I have a flow that's creating emails, those emails could be like a webinar reminder, like what we're doing right now, or it could be a nurturing sequence. It could be a cold outbound. But anytime I have an email where I'm having it write subject lines for me, I'm going to use that training. So these are best practices about how to write subject lines. So in this case, I have best practices around problems.
So Chad, can you zoom in on just one of those nodes just so we can get an idea of kind of how you articulate your prompts and kind of what the output looks like and maybe what model you're using, just so we can get wrap our heads around it?
Yeah, this doesn't have a ton. It's not a gigantic flow. So I'll walk this through. So here's this first node in Flux Prompt is kind of the global run everything start to finish. So this is just like the go button. Then over here, it's like I use sticky notes to highlight for me where I have user inputs. Okay. So here it's like, okay, what's the title of the target customer? Title or role? Here's a brief description of the problem. So in this case, I'm targeting chief product officers. My basic problem is that our investors so there's a product that's getting stuck in development. It's not making its way into production. And then over here, the name of our product is this is, instead of an MSP, this is Managed Security Service Provider Security Ops Client Portal. That's the name of the product that we're doing. And then I think I had one more input here. Oh, this is do a web search that would help inform why does this suck? And this is just grabbing information off the internet about people complaining about this thing.
So you didn't want to label that sticky note, why does this suck? You just wanted
I
to
should
have.
And then now all of these become the inputs. So this is my first AI blog. And if you haven't seen this before, I love how Flux Prompt does this, right? So what normally would be a monolithic prompt into ChatGPT is now broken down into digestible chunks, right?
Yeah.
A great value prop. So in this case, I've got all these inputs flowing into the content section. Here, my prompt is complete the description of the target customer's experience of the problem. And you got to tweak these a little bit. Sometimes, what you try first isn't perfect. Down here, I can select which AI I want to do it. So in this case, I'm using GPT-4, not 4.0. But I could come here and I could click Anthropic, that's Claude, Gemini, right, Perplexity, Grok, I could pick whichever one I think is most appropriate and plug it in. And then also if I have other additional instructions on the output, I put that here. So in this case, I'm using, I've input templates for how problem statements are written and things like that. And then it runs that prompt. Then down here, this is my problem statement training. So I've got, this is probably a dozen websites worth of input about what makes a great problem statement. And then here I'm asking it to write that. So it's breaking this down into two pieces, the user story and the output. So this AI node runs, this one brings them all together. And then it puts it in this push node, which is going to send it out into a Google Doc for me. And then I oftentimes will put another little output box here if I want to
Sure.
just copy and paste it out into other things. So what that looks like when it's output is like this. So in this case, right, here's my product name, target customer, complete
Mm,
with a user story, right? I'm a chief product officer under pressure from new investors. A lot of times this product was deployed for
yeah.
companies that had just gone through an acquisition. So the investors who drove, like if it was a private equity thing, the investors who drove that acquisition, their opinions about how fast the product team was moving were important. And tasked with the crucial role of driving our company's growth. I'm trying to deliver a custom software product to the market as quickly as possible to meet our growth objectives, but the software development process is taking longer than expected, causing delays in our product launch. This is because we're struggling to find effective strategies to speed up our software development process. The situation makes me feel stressed and anxious as the success of our company and the satisfaction of our investors hang in the balance. So it's actually a pretty artful output for
Yeah.
an AI, you know. And so ultimately that's informing what the user's pain is, and our problem statement, which then becomes the root of what we're going to solve, is we're struggling to find effective strategies to speed up our software development process, causing delays in our product launch and putting the success of our company. And so there it is.
Wow.
There, it's a page, but it took, a fraction of the time for me to talk about this as it did to
Yeah.
actually run it. I could have
No,
run 10 problem statements in that much time.
I mean, what's awesome is your output and where you're sending it to Google Docs. It's neat, it's tidy, it's pretty, it's digestible, and that came from all that chaos of nodes and sticky notes and everything. Like that's where the sausage was made, and like here it is. Like that's awesome. That's so awesome to see. Like,
That's right.
I mean, yeah, I want everyone to be able to see something like this so that they can get their ideas for themselves. So that using AI doesn't have to be so messy. I mean, obviously, as you're building, like there's things that you do, but how you display it, how you trigger it, and going back to what you were saying before, like that's the human touch still part of it. So make sure that that is how it's
Yeah.
digested.
Well, and let's say that I wrote this by hand, right? Or did it whatever the non-AI version of analog is, right? Like
Yeah,
I did it
yeah,
manually. Probably this would have taken a couple hours, right? I need to
yeah,
research this. I need to, probably do some of that Google searching myself, and then put this together. And it would probably be marginally better than what AI
mm,
has spit out, but way longer. This way, I can iterate super fast, and so that's I think a big thing. There's a lot of kind of hullabaloo about AI is going to replace marketers. I think the idea of AI as a co-pilot is I recognize that co-pilot is actually the name of an AI, but
right,
in
yeah,
principle as a wingman, right, as a ride along, is it's just a superpower.
yeah. No, I love that. You're exactly right. I mean, I prefer the term caddy, coming from the golf world, but tomato, tomato. What I'm seeing here, though, you're absolutely right. I mean, I've talked to, and all of us at Enhanced AI, we talked to a lot of CEOs, owners, and operators, where if you don't use the buzzword of AI even right now, right? If they said, hey, if I could give you a process that would save you half your time, they all say, yeah, sign me up. When it comes to AI, there's a little bit of pushback. Like, I don't know. Like, and why do you think that is?
Well, for me, it's kind of the early adopter barrier.
Mm,
For me, it's way easier to look at how somebody else is doing and get why that's useful than I mean, it's maybe I'm just a few steps behind, right? But it's easier for me to see somebody do it, and it's like,
yeah,
oh yeah, that makes sense, and I understand why that would save me time and effort, and so I can try it. Which is I think where Flux Prompt really shines. Is it's like,
yeah,
okay, there's a bajillion AI tools. Let's not worry about which tool is the best. Whichever one it is, we'll have it. Let's worry about, okay, what is it we want to do, and how do we make that work
mm,
better and easier. And it takes a little time to set these up and tune them up, right?
sure,
And but once you do that, like it is fast for me to iterate on these projects. And like my inbox of projects still to be kind of converted is big, but it's and they work. It's been really effective.
cool. I mean, thanks for showing me. Thanks for showing all of us, everyone who's watching this. I mean, I would clap. There's a whole room behind me. You just can't see them. They're clapping. They're cheering. I mean, this has been awesome. I love to see companies using AI in their business. and actually doing it practically. I mean, we started this journey even earlier this year. I remember at Tech Week for Utah, so Utah Tech Week, a big thing was just talking about AI, and we were so frustrated. It was stop talking about AI, just show us, do it, like do
Yeah,
something with it. Stop
yeah,
talking about it. So I love that you've taken age-old concepts in revenue operations, whether that be sales or marketing support, and you're like, yeah, we're not talking about it anymore. We're doing it, and here's how. Like I love that. Well done, Chad. And for anyone who's watching, if you don't know, I mean, Enhanced AI can help provide this kind of stuff to you with FlexPrompt. But if you want marketing services, if you need that kind of help, that touch, I mean, Chad and the team at CMO Zen, I mean, there's really no one better. They're a big a supporter of Silk Slopes, and I know it goes the other way around too. So, bravo, Chad. Thanks for showing us this. Right now, if we can, I mean, if there's any questions in the chat, let's go ahead and get them answered. If anyone has any questions for Chad.
Vince, you just said a lot of really nice things about me. Thank you.
No, they're all
That was
true. I mean,
my.
yeah, for someone who doesn't know, I mean, I've been able to talk to you leading up to this to say, hey, we have this idea we want to showcase, and you're like, I've put so much, so many of our business processes in the Flux prompt, and I was like, you built more than one flow? And like, yeah, I built a whole bunch of flows. What are you talking about? Why would I not? I mean, it blew my mind that just the way that not only have you adopted our tool, but honestly, the concept of adopting AI and using it practically. I mean, I think you're really you're steps ahead of what a lot of other people are doing, especially in your own space. So if you're
Yeah.
doing that, I mean, you're putting yourself way ahead.
Yeah, I'd love to take questions if there are some. Thanks, and thanks you to everybody for coming. It's a lot of fun to talk about.
Yeah, I don't see any questions. I mean, to be honest, you set up what you're doing, the problem is solved, you show us the solution, you quantified it. I mean, you kind of beat a lot of us to the punch here. We do have one. This is from Rob Bloss. So he wants to know, Chad, what has been the investment time and lift to accomplish what you have so far?
Yeah, so I think I first picked up a like a copy of Flux Prompt about 2.5 months ago.
Yeah.
So that's the max, and in that time, I think I have 8 to 10 workflows that are consistently working for me, and some of them are like the problem statement workflow is pretty straightforward and simple. Even the battle card workflow itself is actually pretty simple. Thinking through how to do it, beforehand took a little bit more time. And then I have some that are more complex. Like I have one that kind of spits out a first draft of core brand messaging documents based on like a scrape of the company's website. What's great about that is that then if the it will spit out like a mission, vision, and value statements, and spit out company descriptions, executive bios, and all of this are in one prompt. That one probably took me the longest, and what I love about that is that when I take that to clients, then they're like, okay, this isn't quite right, and I was like, that's okay, because this isn't my opinion now. This is just what the AI took from your website. So if this isn't right, we can tune this up here and make sure that the website copy is right. So
Right.
in terms of like how long does it take to build a flow? Not very long, like within an hour or two for most of them. But sometimes iterating on the flow takes more time, or troubleshooting takes a little bit more time. But it's like there is a time investment, and that's actually a little difficult for me because I'm running a company. I've got a whole bunch
Yeah.
of other things
Right.
going on. But I've been able to make enough progress to see real value in relatively short amount of time.
Gotcha. I mean, Roblox also asks, how friendly or newbie friendly would this be for a new hire?
Yeah, so I think it is more friendly than handing somebody like a subscription to Anthropic or OpenAI and saying figure out the prompts. More friendly than that because you're breaking the prompts down into the required chunks. It is in this Canvas UI, which is fairly friendly. There are some things that are difficult about that. Like it's like essentially like using a Miro board. right? Or a Lucidchart.
Okay.
I'll give a shout out to Edgar's alma mater. But so the Canvas UI, I think, has strengths and weaknesses. Generally, it's easier because, I'm going to put stuff out here, and it's a great place to brainstorm. I can add, subtract. I can see how things connect. There's a little learning curve. It's not stupid easy, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's easier than a lot of alternatives.
Interesting. Okay. All right, perfect. Those are the questions we have. So again, thanks for your time, Chad. I mean, I thought this was awesome. I'm not even biased. This was just awesome, just to see that you're doing this as someone come from the marketing space. A lot of good takeaway stuff that I would love to use actually in my day-to-day as well. And like I said, if anyone else has these kind of ideas, it's not just us that can help you. I mean, Chad can show you the way. And I know I speak a little bit for you, Chad. Like I'm sure you'd be happy to do this and help other people and even potentially see the fruits of those labors down the road.
Yeah, I would be. I'd be happy to share anything. Great to be with you today. Thanks so much, Vince, and appreciate all of you for attending. It's great to see you.
Yeah, thanks everyone, and we'll see you next time.